Hi and welcome to the channel. My name is Andrew and today we'll be having a little bit of a walkthrough of some music. I called it a form of generative music that I made in my last video. I'll leave a link now for that video in the video here and also in the description if you want to have a listen to that music. I say, let's just turn this off for a second. It was really an experiment with Tonverk for myself to see if I could get the various elements of the music to blend in and out with each other. So let's have a look at what I actually did to create this so that you would get a continuously evolving piece of music. You just leave it, the machine would just play, and the tones would evolve in level and also in how they behave. Let's just have a look then how some of the techniques I use for this. I have here 7 channels which I used, and I'll just mute those ones now. So we'll just concentrate on the first channel here, channel 2. And on channel 2, we have these notes playing. And I don't think I had a little bit of probability here, 77% chance, 80% chance, and 80% chance. So I also used here a modulation of oscillator position because I'm using this wavetable here. So the position here, this value, was being changed every time one of these notes plays. And let's go back to that. So I modulated position and I modulated pan in a random way. So this is a random. So the pan, every time we get a note played, it's moving in a stereo field. And then finally I had some delay and reverb on this. I don't think there was any other effects. Okay, so that's what's going on the first note. We can go on now to the second one, second track. Let's have a listen. What we have here. So we're on 3. So I have 2 bars playing. It's the first of 2. And I believe on this note here, this is set to play 1 in every 4 bars. That's the only thing that's changing here, evolving, at least on the sequencer level. What we're doing with the tone, I have here a sine wave with these settings, just a basic sine. I'm using no effects here, but on the filter, I've got a low pass here. Oh, press that too many times there. So I've just filtered off a little bit at the low end and given it a little bit of resonance to give it a little bit more presence. But what's really going on, and this technique applies to the remaining tracks, is I'm modulating oscillator 1's level by a very small value here, 0.6 and a BPM 1, so very slowly the level of this bass tone is getting louder and then getting softer. If we look at the amp, because these two are connected, the amp level here I've set to 55 and the modulation level I've set to 41, so it can go, I believe in theory it should go up to about 90 in volume and then down to around about 10 or so, 14, but not completely quiet. So this bass tone will always be present in the track. That's what's going on there. And I'm just modulating a little bit the position of the oscillator here. So we go back to our source. This position is just being modulated very slightly as well, to give it a subtle change in the tone. But the main thing is this modulation of the oscillator 1 level. And that's what I'm doing with these remaining tracks here, which we'll look at. This technique I'm using, and this allows the tracks in volume level to then drift and blend between each other, because I don't use the same value here. The LFO is free running, and I'll have for each of the other tracks I'll have a different value here, so that they blend in and out in terms of volume level. It was a bit tricky to mix together to get the volume. It took a little while, but you can get it there. Okay, so let's look at the next track then. Let's mute the bass and we go to number 4 here. And on this track I'm using as a source again a wavetable, and we're repeating every 12 notes. So that kind of puts it out of sync with the other tracks. Let's see if I use any trick. Yeah, I've got a probability of 58 as well. So it won't always play. And when it does play, if we look at the, I have again the modulation of the level. This time I'm 55, but I'm randomizing the volume level. So occasionally it's louder, occasionally it's more quiet. This one isn't blending in and out, it's hopping in levels. And the amp level here I've also adjusted to match. Then we have some various effects on here, delay and reverb. And I believe, yes, I used a chrono pitch here, so up 7 semitones to add a little bit of overtone to the note. Let's just go at the mod again. So I did the level, and I also modulated randomly the pan here. So it's always in a different pan position every time it does trigger. Okay, so that's what's going on that track. We'll mute that and go to number 5 now. And look at 5. Now 5 is the sub-track. Oh, did I just put a bit, excuse me. Go to 5. And here, on the first we have a kick drum. And this plays this simple sequence all the time. And again, if I go to the top, I'm doing the same thing with the kick. I'm modulating the amp volume here by a value of 25, sine very slowly 1, but this value, as I say, was different to the previous one we saw, which was 0.6. So this has a different frequency of going higher and lower in its volume. And let's just have a look at the amp. The amp setting is 22. So 22 and then a depth here of 25. So this in theory can go up to what, 47 and below 0. So this can go down to 0 and be quiet over this range. This is for the kick. And I'll have a look at the FX. I've got a little bit of reverb, but I'll show you the reverb in a minute. I've filtered the bass out. It's a technique I used in one of my other videos. In fact, let's just look at it very quickly. If I go to the reverb here, 15, you can see I have a filter here, filtering away low frequencies, so they won't be affected by the reverb. The reverb, which I send here, you can hear the kick does receive a little bit of reverb, but not so much. Then you saw just now I had a degrader on here, and this kind of adds that nice little crunchy sound spread out in the stereo field. But I say, the main effect is the amp volume being modulated, and that's nothing else. Let's look at the snare. It basically repeats itself. Here I'm doing the same thing, but I have a slightly different timing, 1.1 for the snare, and I've set my volumes here, 23 and 18 here. So the snare is out of sync with the kick, and I have this tone, I believe, which again has a completely different timing, 0.3. So that's also, this tone is also out of sync with the snare and a kick. And then finally I have a little bit of hi-hat here. Again, this has a slightly different timing, 0.5, and this is the volume 30, coming off of a bass of 30. So this is always audible, because it'll only go into around 4, but very low level. Don't know if we have any other effects. Just a degrader I put on these here. Okay, so that's going on with the rhythm section to produce this kind of unstable sort of rhythm that happens in the music. We can now go to, I can show you actually we can have a look at, this is the hi-hat. And I think on some of these I did some, probably I can't remember, maybe not. No, I didn't do it on those. Okay, and on the snare also, just a very simple snare. Here we've got some probabilities here of it playing here as well. And also if I look at this one and look at the amp level, here we go to amp, you see this one's 16, this one's 9, very, very low. and this one here is this one here is 18. So that one I've not parameter locked. So these ones have lower, different volume levels. Again, just slight variations. Okay, so let's come out of there. On the FX, as I say, a little bit of reverb, but I've tried to cut the kick drum out of it. Let's go to track 6 now. And this has, we'll look at this, we have a, hold on 6. I have this sample here. And this one is, again, random pan every time it plays. These are the values. And also random volume again. So this one has a faster LFO speed, 1.85, with a value of 21. And the amp is set for 54. So this also can just fade in and out, but never quite go silent. And it just comes and goes within the track. FX, let's say just some reverb on this, and that's really it. I think that for that tone there, so that, as you can hear, it's fading away, so it kind of comes into the track when you don't expect it and then fades out. And that is really just, I believe that's an ARP on there as well, if I remember rightly. I think I had the ARP playing here. Okay, let's go on to the next track, which is number 7. And 7, we have a recording from my garden, basically. And if we listen to that, got some various noises, birds, vehicles going by, planes flying over. It's quite a long sample. I think it went on for a few minutes, 2 or 3 minutes. And I've put lots of effects on this. I've got reverb. I've also got daisy delay here. Here are the settings for the daisy delay, so every half note, and that's going into the reverb. I'm modulating here the filter width, which is, if we go to the filter here, so these are the settings here, also very slow, but I'm affecting this value here, the width of, so it's allowing the lower frequencies to come in and be removed, and so you're getting a constant change. But I'm also modulating the start of the sample here. So we look at the source. It'll start in different positions every time it's triggered. Let's see how it's triggered. Well, you can see I have so 16 bars, 3, 6, 8, 16 bars, and I'm triggering on the first. And if I go through to, I'm triggering here, but this one has a different start position. So if I go here, you can see a little line appeared. So I'm always starting here and then jumping from here with this trigger, whereas on the first trigger, if I go back, you can see this hopefully to the first one here, this one is starting, the line is at the beginning. So it's jumping around in this area, whereas the trigger on the 9th bar is jumping around this area. So I always get slightly different tones or slightly different areas of that long sample. So that's why you get a different feel every time. And then finally, let's come out of that. Finally, on track 8, turn off that one here, I have this sample. Maybe we get that to show again, I don't know. But it's actually one of the samples. We can look here. Tendril in A minor, it's one of the samples on Tonverk. It's just an atmosphere. And I felt I needed some kind of pad to fill it out a little bit. So I'm using this pad, it's looped. Again, I'm just one note being triggered here. This is running over 8 bars. But I'm modulating here again the amp volume. Again, different value, 1.25. This is the value 30 for the amp level. A little bit of chorus and reverb here. And 55 here. So 55, and I'm modulating it with a value of 30. So it's always present, but comes in and out louder. And I've widened it up with a chorus here. And also, if you look at the modulation here, I'm also modulating the filter frequency a little bit here, so that we get a slightly different tone every time. And you can hear it's fading out now. And it'll come and go within the track. And that's really it. Those are the techniques I've used to put this track together, so that you just press play and it's always different. As I say, you have to balance the volumes a little bit tricky, but it was just an experiment to see what I could do on Tonverk. Okay, I hope this video has been useful and gives you some ideas yourself to just experiment and play around. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Thank you and take care.